Ba 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 da ba da ba ba da ba da ba ba da ba ba. Welcome back to our study of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. Today we begin to look at the apostles that are seated to the left of Jesus, and so we speak about the apostle James, who we've already spoken a little bit about already. We know that James had a brother, John, and they were known as the sons of Zebedee. And so Leonardo da Vinci, in all of his great brilliance in his masterpiece, depicts these brothers, one sitting to Jesus' right and the other sitting to his left, which is sort of an homage to Matthew's Gospel, chapter 20, when the mother of James and John asked that her two sons be seated at Jesus' right and left in glory. And so here they are, one seated on the right, one seated on the left. As we look at James, just seated on the left of Jesus, he's in a posture of astonishment. That's not surprising. All of the apostles seem to be astonished. And his arms are spread wide open. Now, why is James depicted like this? It could be because James is the first of the apostles to be martyred, to be killed for the faith. And so he seems to already be holding his arms open. We spoke, when we talked about Andrew, this posture is a posture of surrender, of abandonment. And so perhaps he's already offering his life as a sacrifice as the first martyr. Let me tell you what I do like about this and what I don't like about this. Tradition says that James was martyred not by being crucified with his arms out, but instead by being beheaded by Herod. However, what I do like about this is in a single moment, Leonardo da Vinci is depicting a movement from pridefulness to humble surrender. At one moment, the pridefulness of James and John wanting seats of honor next to Jesus in glory. And so here he is on the left of Jesus, one son to the right, one son to the left. But then, of course, we see James with his arms open, ready to surrender his life in humility. And so in a single moment, Leonardo's able to capture a lifetime's journey from a struggle of pridefulness and wanting a place of honor to a heart of humility, willing to sacrifice himself and be the first of the apostles to sacrifice his life for Christ and for his church. Perhaps my favorite part of James in this painting comes when we see his astonishment and really where his eyes are directed. When we look at his head and his eyes, he's not really looking directly at Jesus, but instead he's looking down at the table. Perhaps his look of astonishment, his arms out to the side, are an amazement of James. James is thinking to himself, what an incredible thing is going on here. He's marveling and aghast at the transubstantiation that's going on. The fact that Jesus is taking bread and wine and it's being transformed into the Eucharist, into his body and blood, which he offers for them. I think this brings up a good question for us when we are at Mass, when we see what happens at that table, at the altar at Mass, when ordinary bread and wine is transformed into the body and blood of Christ. Do we just sort of sit there like bumps on a log? Or are we like James? Are we astonished, amazed at the miracle that happens in the Eucharist at every Mass? All too often we just treat the Last Supper or we treat the Mass like it's some fun commemoration of something that happened 2,000 years ago at the Last Supper. But in reality, what we celebrate at every Mass is the exact same thing that James experienced on that Last Supper day. He is seated right next to Jesus. He has a front row to see this miracle, and we also at Mass have a front row to see the miracle of the Eucharist. Now, perhaps we don't sit in the front row. If you're a good Catholic, you probably sit all the way in the back. But we're still present at that altar, still present with Christ truly present in the Eucharist, and we witness at every Mass a miracle. The same miracle that James saw, the same miracle that he was astonished at and saw the great beauty. As we continue next time with our study of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, we continue to move down the left side of the table and to the apostle that's sitting to the left of James, but that's sort of sneaking behind him as well. Have a wonderful day. Stay holy and stay healthy. Ba 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 da ba da ba ba da ba da. Yeah, whatever.